correct, you're leading the US out of Korea campaign, which is part of Nodutdol. Could you explain what Nodutdol is and expand on what the purpose of the US out of Korea campaign is, just for viewers who might not be familiar?
Sure thing. Do want to also emphasize that the US out of Korea campaign is like a whole effort by not only Nodutdol, but in addition to that, over 100 organizations that have endorsed the platform and taken on the task of being our partners in this. So while I play a specific role in the campaign, it's certainly not, my individual initiative. It's belongs to the whole organization and to the wider movement that's moving along with us. To share a little bit about the US out of Korea campaign, this is an initiative that we launched last year in response to massive escalation undertaken by the US military in Korea. I think just to share a little bit of information regarding that, in 2023, there were more than 200 days where the US military was engaged in war exercises in Korea. In 2024, that number rose to 275 days of the year. So more than 5 days a week. And we are now expected in 2025 to actually shatter that record and keep pushing. I think it's really only a matter of time before the US military finds a way to have more days of war games in Korea than there are in the calendar year. And so it was in response to these escalations that we felt that this campaign was necessary in order to begin to more effectively move public opinion in the US, in order to organize our own diaspora, and also bring together people of conscience who have an awareness of Korea's history and reality in the US, whether they're Korean or not. So we unveiled a platform under the US Out of Korea campaign that has four central demands. The first is US out of Korea, which is basically what it sounds like. We want all US troops gone. We want all US bases and military installations to be dismantled, for the land, the water, the airspace that was appropriated for US military use to be returned to the Korean people. The second demand is an end to the US ROK alliance. And we're actually defining that in terms of all of the networks of alliances that South Korea or the ROK is involved in, which are US led. So it's not only the formal US ROK alliance, it's also things like JAKUS, the Japan Korea US Trilateral Security Cooperation. And we would even extend it to South Korea's participation as a member observer in NATO. We think that these alliances are dangerous, that they're raising the temperature in the wider region, and that their real purpose is to ensnare South Korea as a junior partner in wars that are not going to benefit the majority of Korean people, but that will result in huge numbers of Korean people being on the front lines of battle, both as soldiers for the empire and as civilians, because unlike the United States, South Korea actually is in the region that politicians in Washington are planning to start wars in. Our third demand is an end to all US aggression against the DPRK, that's North Korea. That means an end to all US military exercises in Korea. It also means an end to the overall hostile policy that Washington has against Pyongyang, and that we are including US sanctions under that. North Korea has one of the most restrictive and draconian sanctions regimes that have been imposed on it out of any country in the world. It's really only comparable to countries like Iran and Cuba. And lastly, we want an end to the war economy. And we're defining that in terms of the massive sums that are funneled from the pockets of US taxpayers, which are primarily the working class, and then, handed over in the forms of contracts and subsidies to the war machine. When we say the war machine, we don't just mean the companies that are producing weapons. We also mean the vast network of corporations that are in alliance with the war, whether that's petrochemical companies, all other kinds of capitalist monopolies that really seek to use war as a way to expand their market share and their domination of the global economy. So we really see the answer to that as the rise of a people's economy. And, that requires redirection of resources towards things like healthcare, like housing, jobs, ecological restoration, and climate justice. I think as a final point on this fourth demand, we really need to note that there has to be a real concerted effort to fight the inflation of the war budget in the United States. President Donald Trump has vowed to put together a $1 trillion Pentagon budget for the first time ever. Now, we should note that the US has actually been spending more than $1 trillion on war every year for some time, because you can't just look at the defense budget, you also have to look at its nuclear budget as well. But I think that we can all be in agreement that this is an immense waste of resources. It's an immense waste of human potential and time. It's investment in nothing but the destruction of people on our planet. And we want the wealth that we produce with our labor as workers to go towards the improvement and the advancement of society and the world, and not towards its destruction.
I totally can get behind all of your demands there. But I do have just a question on strategy, or just in terms of what are the main tactics and tools that you use to build your movement and make those demands.
So, what we understand is that the masses of people are the ones that make history, and that in order for that to happen, there has to be changes in consciousness. So, this campaign is really oriented around education and towards actually building the mass movement that can fight for Korea and really for the end of US imperialism on a consistent and a committed basis. So, the different kinds of tactics that we use, span a wide range of things. It can include media and narrative interventions. It includes public education, whether that's in the form of like book clubs, presentations, teach-ins, podcasts like this. And it also includes mobilization. So some of the key moments of mobilization that we've had in the past year have been around some of the larger war games that have taken place in Korea, which typically occur every March and every August. In addition to that, we are also working to bring together organizations from not only across the left, but really across the political spectrum that have an interest in actually advancing human potential and actually, fighting injustice. And in order to do that, we have things like the People's Summit for Korea, which is coming up in just about a month's time and will take place in New York City. Really an opportunity for us to engage a wide range of organizations that have a history of work on questions of peace and anti-militarism, and begin moving towards the same direction with common goals in mind. When we pursue this campaign, it's not because we think that, we in Nodutdol are necessarily going to be the ones who will individually on our own result in a massive change in how the US orients towards its empire, but because we want to engage millions of people to begin to question the role of US imperialism in the world and begin to make commitments to combat it effectively.